We'll call this meeting to order. This is the regular meeting of the New Ulm Planning Commission, New Ulm, Minnesota. It's Thursday, October 27th, 2016, 4:30 p.m. We have 8 items on the agenda today. Item 1 would be to approve the minutes of the September 29th, 2016 meeting.
I'd like to comment that I was not present at the last meeting. They have me down here as members present for the September 29th meeting. And then they have Jim as
Yeah.
being
They
absent.
have our two are mixed up. I was here and Larry was not. So he's recommending a correction of the minutes, I believe.
Well, yeah.
is
So
the
what
motion-
would be appropriate is to make a motion to approve the minutes as corrected, and as corrected would include that change.
Okay.
And we'll make a motion to the minutes as corrected, as stated. And
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye.
I
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 2, this is a public hearing. Consider the amendment of the land use plan section of the comprehensive plan to allow residential units on the ground floor of buildings located in the downtown area. Now, this is a public hearing. No one is in attendance. So the question is, have we received any feedback, mail, calls?
No, we have not.
With that, I would recommend that someone make a motion to close the public hearing, and then we'll move on to the discussion.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I
Opposed? Motion carried. So now we'll go on to deal with then, Mr. Schnobreak, you want to run through the?
Members of the commission, the applicant is the New Ulm City Council. The purpose of the public hearing was to consider modifying the comprehensive plan to allow residential units on the ground floor of buildings in the downtown area. Background information, and some of you may have heard some of this previously or at last month's meeting. A comprehensive plan is an official document adopted by a local unit of government as a policy guide to decisions about the physical development of the community. The plan is intended to be comprehensive, general, and long-range. A comprehensive plan is intended to provide an outline for future community development. The plan provides a foundation for land use management and control. The city's current plan was adopted on September 4th, 2007, and was intended to guide the development of the city for the next 10 years. Land use forms the foundation of the comprehensive plan. The type, location, and relationships of land uses shape the physical appearance of New Ulm, the social interaction of its residents, and the long-term economic sustainability of the community. At its September 6, 2016 meeting, the New Ulm City Council directed the Planning Commission to amend the comprehensive plan and determine a coherent policy allowing residential uses on the ground floor of buildings in the downtown area. The council specifically stated that items to be considered included maintaining storefronts for commercial purposes, and the percentage of a building's ground floor that could be used for residential or for commercial purposes. The Planning Commission, at its September 29th, 2016 meeting, discussed this request and then approved the following motion. And that motion was to conduct a public hearing on the following amendment of the land use section of the comprehensive plan. And that was to allow up to 33% of a building's ground floor in the downtown area to be used for residential purposes, I would note that as part of that discussion, it was agreed that the unit should be located in the middle or rear of the building. The second item was that the street address of the building was to be used for purposes of determining the front of the building and therefore allowing a determination to be made as to what was the middle or rear of the building. Okay, the second thing, the second part of that motion was to set the public hearing for 4:30 p.m. on Thursday, October 27, 2016, in the City Council chambers in City Hall. While only 4 members of the Planning Commission were in attendance, it was agreed that a new policy statement should be prepared for consideration at the public hearing. The new policy statement can be changed prior to its submittal to the City Council. The term downtown refers to the geographic area designated on the land use plan map of the comprehensive plan. And a copy of the land use map is provided as one of the attachments, and so we'll have an opportunity to look at that. This policy change will apply to all commercial buildings zoned B1, B2, and B3, and located in the downtown area. The attachments are the entire land use chapter of the comprehensive plan that consists of 12 pages. That is followed by a map, the land use map from the comprehensive plan. And the area that is designated downtown is the pink with black dots. So it's a much larger area than the downtown area that is shown on our zoning map. So there is a difference there. The final attachment then is the proposed change to the text of the land use plan section. And what I'd like to do is just read that. This is taken from page 3-4 of the comprehensive plan. And so we are going to, the staff would recommend that you eliminate the sentence that reads, housing may occur on second floors as part of mixed-use developments and in freestanding structures, and instead substitute the following sentences: that housing may be located on the ground floor of buildings. This housing can be placed in the middle or rear of the structure and not exceed 33% of the ground floor building area. The front of the building is determined by the building's street address, and this area must be used for permitted business purposes. Housing may also occur on second floors and in freestanding structures located on the periphery of the traditional downtown area. That concludes the staff report.
Okay. Well, it looks like we've covered the request for what constitutes the front, and they can use answers the question about the middle of the building. How are you guys comfortable with the 33%?
Mr. Chairman, go ahead, Rod.
I wasn't at some of the meetings, but I did follow as much as I could. I thought that was just reverse, that we were looking at up to 2/3 for residents and 1/3 for business.
And that's what I had thought too. I thought 33% was going to be for business, and yeah. Now, maybe thinking about this, maybe it should be 50-50. Is that going to throw a wrench in the whole configuration of the things?
No,
We can change to whatever we want.
it's a decision of the Planning Commission. It's your recommendation to the City Council. When we discussed this matter, The Bodie project was at 38%, and I thought we were going to go down, the consensus was to go down to 33%. Now, maybe I misunderstood.
I'm just thinking that some of these downtown buildings, if you only use 33% for residential in the back, is it even gonna pay for them to do it? Are they gonna be able to fit an apartment in 33% of the building and make it livable apartment? You know, where it's gonna be, some of these places might be only 400 square feet, 300 in the apartments.
I think it depends so much on the size, total size of the building. And if you have some of these buildings that are relatively narrow, it wouldn't work, I don't think. I think if you have a larger structure, it may work, but a small building like that, I don't see the 33% would be adequate. And I guess I also don't understand what the harm would be in making it larger than that, up to 50%. I'd be willing to look at it, something like that.
I guess my thoughts are, I think we might have to look at the square footage of the overall footprint of each building by case scenario. You know, because if you have a 20-foot wide building or 22 to 25, like a lot are downtown, you know, the 33, like you had stated, would be relatively small. But I mean, what started this was taking an oversized building of, you know, upwards of 10,000 square feet, and it was talked about making 1/3 of it approximately into apartments, so.
Well, one option is to put a percentage of use, whatever that number is, just as a, thinking outside the box a little. Maybe it could be could be a minimal size of X square foot.
Mr. Chairman, I was thinking along terms what Larry mentioned about a percent of the building, but then you're needing to come back every time there's a request. And I think the up to 1% could cover it, but I think it needs to be higher than 33%.
Would 45% seem adequate?
Would for me. I do think it should be a little higher than 33, because again,
50 might be a little high.
The building is gonna have a big impact on that number. Like Rod indicated, if it's a long, narrow building, and so I don't have a problem with going a little higher. We'll sell this one first, I guess, but I have another question relative. You have a vacant building downtown, and someone wants to put housing in there. There has to be a business in it in order to do it, right? There has to be an active business in these buildings for this to be viable. Am I understanding that right?
That's not what this says. This says that you can, use a certain percentage of space for a residential use.
Even if the front, which we're requiring, has to be reserved for business.
What we're saying is you have to reserve the space for that.
Because, that business might move out also.
Yeah.
So you might have a business in there when you start working on the apartments, and all of a sudden, the business might leave, and all of a sudden you have an empty storefront.
Okay. So then the percentage that we were talking about, that is remaining for business, somehow needs to be reserved for that building, correct? That space?
Correct. No matter what, you won't be able to put apartments in there unless you reserve a space for up front. Let's just say if we move it to 45%. 45% of that building's gonna have to be upfront space for a business. Or whatever percent we discuss to do.
Mr. Chairman, has that been addressed any place in here as far as this reserve?
Well,
Or is it just implied because you're saying up to 1% could be for residential?
well, what the statement said is that the housing can be placed in the middle or rear of the structure and not exceed whatever percent of the
Whatever
ground
percent of
floor
the building.
building area, The front of the building is determined by the building street address, and this area must be used for permitted business purposes. So I think,
So the fact that the
That should be-
building is zone B1, 2, or 3 will answer that question.
right,
Because it's already zoned for that, and residents cannot be more than whatever percentage we pick.
yeah.
The zoning would take care of as far as what's the front, be in the front of the building, correct?
Well, the statement,
The permitted use at the front of the building, correct?
But if one wanted to turn the entire building to residential, that wouldn't happen either.
you know,
That's what we're trying to protect
That's
here.
what you're trying to do, right?
Correct.
So I would want to at least move that number up at least 40%. To make it
I'm
work.
kind of stuck on 50, but I'd be willing to go to 45.
Well, one more question. If I understood you right, the parties that started this, that want to do that, what they're advocating is 38% already?
I
mean,
was
so they
just-
would be,
yeah, I was simply commenting that
Okay.
Mr. Bodie's proposal was to use 38% of the space for residential purposes.
it should at least be that
No.
high.
Which is a unique building.
Understand.
Yeah.
I would make a motion to throw a 45% out there for
I'll second that
so
motion.
the residential purposes.
So is it correct then that the motion is to approve the language that's been presented on the final page of the attachment, with the exception that the percentage of the area that can be devoted to residential purposes is changed from 33% to 45%?
Correct.
That's what I was second also.
And if
Okay.
I'm correct by understanding that, report back to council, we're doing that because to make an adequate size apartment if we have a long and narrow
Because you
building.
will,
or-
at 33%, you'll never be able to get an apartment in there for livable apartment, I don't think.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the proposed verbiage with the change of 33 to 45%. Does that sound right?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion on the matter?
To the city staff, I believe it'd be outside of the downtown area, but do we have any areas outside the downtown area that have business in front and living in back? First thing that comes to mind is Domeyer's. So I wonder if this has been addressed outside of the downtown area at all.
Domeyer's is located in a residential
Right,
zoning
yeah, that's what I said,
district, So
outside.
that is kind
Okay.
of a different situation. I can't think of, we have business zoned areas where we have single-family dwellings, but I can't think of a situation where we have a combination of business and residential. Other than home occupations that we've approved, that would be the only instance.
Well, as long as we're in discussion, I have one other question. And I'm asking the question just because I don't know the answer, and I'm not advocating for or against, but I want to throw it out there. When this whole thing was going on, there was a lot of emphasis, discussion on parking. There's nothing in here that says anything relative to parking for the residential. So the reason I'm throwing it out there is, should there be or should there not be? Is it something to think about or not?
Okay. It is still going to be a requirement in the downtown area that an individual that is interested in establishing residential units will need to apply for a conditional use permit. And as part of the conditional use permit criteria, that is where the parking requirement is addressed.
Okay, so that is the same. You
Yeah.
still have to go through the conditional
Right.
use.
The main issue in dealing with this particular request that had to be clarified and adjusted is the fact that our comprehensive plan said housing goes on the second floor or in a freestanding building. And so it specifically was saying it's not on the first floor. So that's what we're adjusting in the comprehensive plan.
So this is not generating us to make another change on the conditional use permit or anything else. It's strictly,
This is strictly in the comprehensive plan, right?
okay, I just want to, clear as mud,
Clear?
clear. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. We will move on to item 3, consider for approval of the preliminary plot of Zangel Addition.
Okay, the applicant for the preliminary plat is Todd Zangel. The property owners involved in the plat are the Michael Hasse Revocable Trust and Todd Zangel. The current legal description of the property is Lot 7, Block 1, Front Street Estates, vacated Cortlandt Street, and Sublot 1 of Outlot C. Street address of the property is 1229 to 1415 South Front Street. The property is zoned R1 Single Family Residence District and RA Agricultural Residence District. And if you look at the plat, the different zoning districts actually show up in Lot 1. So a portion of Lot 1 will be zoned R1 and a portion will be zoned RA. The property is generally located east of South Front Street between 12th and 15th South Street. Located on the property are 2 single-family residential units and several accessory structures. The southerly portion of the platted area is vacant, and a large portion of the property is located in the Minnesota River floodplain, and consequently it is also undeveloped. Property to the south is zoned RA, to the north R1, and to the west R1, I2, and R2. Undeveloped property is located to the south, single-family dwellings to the north, and a mix of industrial and commercial uses to the west. The Minnesota River levee crosses the property in a north-south alignment. The platting of the property was a condition to the following actions taken by the New Ulm City Council. And I might note that the Planning Commission also made recommendations on these items. Number 1, approval of a simple lot division of the south half of vacated Cortlandt Street on June 7, 2016. And 2, approval of the use of a meets and bounds legal description to facilitate the sale of property at 1301 South Front Street, also on June 7, 2016. The platted property would have 3 lots. Each lot would extend from South Front Street to the Minnesota River. The lots would have the following dimensions and lot area. And information then is provided in matrix of the legal description, lot width, lot depth, and the lot area in acres. The total area to be platted is approximately 9.1 acres. The lots have dimensions which more than meet the city's requirements. A plus-minus designation is used behind several of the numbers due to the property's location on the Minnesota River and the difficulty in identifying a rear property line location. And so what you'll notice if you look at the plat is a monument is typically placed close to the edge of the river, and there's a distance to that monument, and then they'll provide a dimension to the riverbank, but because the riverbank can change, it's listed as being plus minus. The lots comply, as I said, with R1 zoning requirements. The floodplain designates, or the comprehensive plan designates the property for low-density residential and floodplain land uses. Comprehensive plan does not designate a park within the platted area. And utilities to serve the property are located in South Front Street. Staff would recommend approval of the preliminary plat, subject to the applicant providing an electronic file of the plat in an AutoCAD 2000 or newer format. The applicant has paid the necessary application fees that are required for the plat. Attached is a copy of the preliminary plat, an aerial photograph, and 3 ground level photographs. And so on the following page is the preliminary plat. Lot 1 is parcel that is owned by Todd Zangel. Lot 2 is also owned by Todd Zangel, but he has informed me that he is in the process of selling that particular parcel. That's where the residence is located. And then Lot 3 is the parcel that is owned by Mr. Hasse. So then there's an aerial photo showing the property, location of the levee is identified. And then there are 3 ground level photographs. The first is looking south, and you can see a garage that is belongs to Mr. Hasse, and so the his dwelling unit is behind that vegetation. You can kind of see Mr. Zangel's single-family dwelling then in the background. The second photo is looking north. The red accessory buildings are located on Lot 3. Mr. Zangel is going to retain ownership of that particular lot. And then the third photo is looking south across the levee. And those trees in the background, that's the type of vegetation that you can find on most of Lot 3. That concludes the staff report.
Recommendation would be to approve the staff's recommendation.
So moved.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second to approve the request for the staff's recommendation to approve their preliminary plot, subject to applicant writing electronic file for the plot in an AutoCAD 2000 or newer format. Is there any indication that they're not willing to do that?
No, it's very easily, all plats today are
Yeah.
prepared in electronic format. That's how they transmit them to us, so it's,
So any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Then we'll move on to item 4, consider for approval a simple lot division of Lot 6, Block 214 of the River Addition.
okay. The request is made by Jerry Swoboda, General Manager. The owner is the Farmers Cooperative of Hanska. The current legal description is Lot 6, Block 214, River Addition. Street address of the property is 222 North Front Street. The property is zoned I-2 General Industrial District. The applicant proposes to divide Lot 6 into 2 parcels. This parcel of property is generally located east of North Front Street and south of 3rd North Street. The lot is currently vacant, and adjoining property was previously used for temporary grain storage. The proposed legal descriptions would be as follows. Parcel A would be the north half of Lot 6, Block 214 River Addition, and Parcel B would be the south half of Lot 6, Block 214 River Addition. Lot 6 has approximate dimensions of 50 by 100. Parcel A would be sold to the adjoining property owner to the north. Street address of this property is 226 North Front Street. There are no lot area, lot width, or lot depth requirements in the I-2 zoning district. The staff would recommend approval of the simple lot division since it complies with city code requirements. This approval should be subject to the following conditions. The applicant will record the resolution authorizing the lot division of Lot 6 with the Brown County Recorder's Office, and Parcel A will be combined with Lot 7, Block 214 River Addition to form one parcel of property for tax and building purposes. Attached is the applicant's letter, a drawing of the property showing the proposed simple lot division, an aerial photograph and ground level photograph of the property.
Okay, wishes.
Make a motion to approve the recommendation.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second to approve the request per recommendation of the staff. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 5, discuss a new meeting date for the month of November 2016. I don't particularly, I have a calendar on my field, but
Okay, there's a
Calendar on.
calendar on as part of the agenda.
Here you go.
It's on the last page.
we'll wait in the end of our document.
Yeah.
Yeah, very last item.
Okay. The reason for this is Thanksgiving, I believe.
Right.
Is the preference to stay with Thursday? Does the day of the week make a difference?
The reason that we would go with Thursday is this room is available
Okay.
on that
Gotcha.
day. And so that means then that the meeting can be taped and,
I had put a note out to anyone that was not gonna be here tonight, so to get some feedback if they had any preferences, but I didn't get any response, so it's up to us.
yeah.
So are we thinking the 17th of November?
We were thinking December 1st. And what we can do is, I'll have Missy send out an email to all of you asking, we can check on either of those dates to see what the availability would be.
I would be fine with either of them.
I'd be fine with either
Yeah.
date.
Okay.
Are there, any known requests that have some kind of a high priority to get accomplished before the end of the year, that if we delay that a week or whatever, that's gonna,
The only item would be the plat. I mean, they'll be coming back with the final plat. If we meet, sometime latter part of, or the first part of December, or in mid-November, then they could hold a public hearing on the plat, or the second meeting in December, the city council could. And that would then allow them to file a plat prior to the end of the year, which could be an advantage, something that they'd like to do. I'm not certain, but,
but per Jeff's question about the 17th, do we have anything that's going to require a 30-day notice for a public hearing or anything?
not yet. Nothing's been submitted.
Okay. I'm open, what's your
Yeah, okay, so we'll just
preference?
send it out.
Have staff schedule it.
For what now? Help me.
Missy will send out notice to see if
pick-
everybody can make it for the
pick a couple
17th.
days.
So we will select the date that, which we can get a quorum and probably the most members of the commission present.
Do you feel strongly on a certain day preference?
No,
Anyone?
I think as long as we can get 4 of us here.
Yeah, okay. All right. So we don't really need to take any action on that one then, do we?
No.
Okay. Any status and revisions of zoning and subdivisions?
Okay, staff's been working on the off-street parking section and started to write that, and we've also researched a section on solar energy and accommodation of that type of use on properties. So we are able to devote time to this project, and I'm hopeful that we can make some progress now.
Okay. About revisions of the, when that was on, report on city council decisions.
Okay, there were no items on the October 4th meeting. At the October 20th meeting, there weren't any planning commission items that were reviewed, but they did adopt at that time a complete streets policy. A complete streets policy is one in which the city commits to considering a variety of different types of users of the street right away. So you would look at, as well as automobiles, you would look at pedestrians and bicyclists and other forms of, or other types of vehicular equipment that could use the street, and see if you can, if it's necessary and appropriate to accommodate their use. If the city had a mass transit program, that's another element that would be considered. Apparently, having such a policy is advantageous in applying for grants. And since I think we already do a pretty good job of looking at, those kind of uses when we do our engineering for our streets.
My understanding of that one was we really have everything in place already, but by doing this, they have access to grant money.
This is, many times when you're applying for grants, they'll have a question about, do you have a complete streets policy? So when you can say yes, that, is a benefit to your application.
Okay, anything on heritage?
We did not have a meeting this month.
Okay, anything else the commissioner want to bring up?
Oh, one other thing that I might note, we are going to be changing our city hall hours starting the first of the year. We will be going to an 8 o'clock to 4:30 hours of operation. So that's really not going to impact,
I was just going to
this
say, will that
meeting. No.
impact like the city council meetings or these meetings?
It could impact the city council meetings.
It could. It may come up for discussion here,
Yeah, I think there'll be an agenda item on the next agenda for the council to talk about that.
Okay.
But as far as the time that the Board of Zoning Adjustment or the Planning Commission meets, that won't be impacted.
Okay, anything else? No further business, meeting adjourned.